Hello and welcome back to All Things Money. I'm your host for the show today, David Blain, as I am every week. And today we're talking a little bit about Warren Buffett and how you may or may not want to invest like Warren. I study Warren Buffett, one of America's richest investors, and the principles that he follows are excellent. Any investor, frankly, any walk of life, if you read his readings and listen to him talk, he's obviously a very intelligent man, and I think he has things that we all can learn from, certainly in investing, about looking for good value in when you buy investments, looking for value, not paying too much, looking for things that you understand. If he was handed prospectus for a variable annuity that's 5 inches thick, I can guarantee you that he would say, forget that. Now his Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary does sell fixed annuities, which are much simpler. Hey, you give Berkshire Hathaway your money, they promise to pay you X amount of dollars for the rest of your life. It's very simple. He invests in things that he understands that are simple, and he doesn't pay too much for them. But what I want to talk about is sort of following his moves that he makes, especially in some of these crisis-related things. You may or may not know, but he recently invested $5 billion in Bank of America, a special preferred, where he's getting a 6% dividend yield. We mentioned back in 2008, he invested in Goldman Sachs, where he received a 10% preferred yield. I also thought I would mention back in 2008, he also invested in GE. He bought $3 billion of preferred shares, also with a 10% dividend yield. At the time, the stock was selling around $21 a share. Now it's between $15 and $16, a loss of 20%. So once again, the way Warren invests and his time frame that he invests and the deal that he gets, if you had run out and bought GE shares at the same time, you'd be down about 20%, where he's still ahead of the game. A lot of these preferred also have what they call warrants attached to them. That means that, let's say that he has a warrant to buy the stock at 100, and the stock goes up to 150. That means he gets to buy the stock at $100 when it's trading for 150. So he automatically or sort of instantly makes another big chunk of money. If you go out and you buy the common stock, you get a paltry dividend yield and there are no warrants. Warren goes in and says, hey, I'll give you $5 billion, but I want a 10% preferred dividend, and I want warrants to buy your common stock at some price that is a good deal for him. So we like Warren Buffett. We like his principles. Well, all I'm saying is that when he runs out and invests in Bank of America stock, it does not necessarily mean that you should follow suit. Make sure you understand what you're doing, whether it's me or Warren Buffett. Make sure that what you're doing ties into your goals, your risk tolerance, things like that. That's why when we have clients come into us, we spend a lot of time talking about their goals, their time frame, their risk tolerance. Warren Buffett, one of his sayings that he has is his favorite time frame is forever. Well, for someone that's 55 that needs to start living on their income in 5 or 10 years, their time frame is not forever. Granted, they have a long life expectancy and they do have a long time that money has to last and they need to invest in quarterly. But there's a big difference between Warren Buffett investing the way he does and an individual that's actually going to need to spend the money. When Warren takes $5 billion and puts it in Goldman, he doesn't need that $5 billion. In fact, all his money, or the majority of his money, is pledged to charity. And so it's a big difference between somebody that may need it in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years and Warren. So anyway, that's just what I want to talk about. He made headlines. I think it's great. I love it when he does it because it shows that he has confidence in the economy. He has confidence in these companies. Bank of America, of course, if they went down, it would be an absolute disaster. They're one of the largest banks in the country, which is incidentally why I don't bank with them, but that's another story. But they are a massive, as Clark Howard says, big, giant, mega monster bank, and we certainly don't want them to have financial problems because their tentacles into the economy are certainly very far-reaching. And so it's a good thing when we see Warren investing money into these companies, not necessarily to follow suit, but just that he has confidence that they will do okay. One thing for the people, I meant to bring up this at the beginning of the show. For those of you still recovering from Hurricane Irene, I hope that things are working out for you and that people in our viewing and listening audience did not sustain too much damage, as well as people all up and down the East Coast. Of course, we're on YouTube, the website. People from all over the country and the world may be listening to this. We hope that you're recovering well. It does point to the fact that insurance is your first line of defense. If you're in or near a flood area, make sure you understand what your insurance covers. It does not cover flooding. You have to have a separate flood policy. The rules for what your homeowner's policy covers are very complicated. Make sure you have a competent insurance agent that can review your policies and let you know, because when you have these events where you sustain some damage and there's water damage mixed in with regular damage, if you don't have flood insurance, a lot of times your regular policy does not cover these things. You have to have a specific flood insurance policy. It also points to the fact that don't skimp on your insurance. If you have something that you cannot recover from financially, such as flood or hurricane or tornado or something, that's the purpose of insurance. The same thing with, your car. Cars become flooded in hurricanes and they get washed away or flooded. Make sure that you're dealing with a reputable insurance company that's going to pay your claim if you do have a claim, and B, make sure that you have adequate coverage. So make sure, do a review of your insurance company. You don't want a fly-by-night insurance company. You want them there. You want them to pay claims when you need it. And if you're not comfortable with, how to review a policy, sit down with your agent. We're not insurance agents. We'll be happy to review those policies for you, point you in the right direction to a competent agent. But it's critical that you review these every several years to make sure that the policies you have, reflect the property that you currently have. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's show. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you'll join us again next week at the same time. So for All Things Money, I'm your host, David Blain. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
The proceeding was a paid program. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of WNBU and Inner Banks Media.